I've never touched 270 before. I've never even thought about putting 270 on. It was just always out of reach. Today seemed like a good day to have a crack at it. I didn't plan to do this. Simply came in and warmed up, and I was quite happy with how I was moving, how everything felt. I was in my body, like, I don't know how else to say it. I didn't feel like I was reaching. I didn't feel like I was out of position. I feel like I was stacked. I feel like I was under the bar. I was wedging myself really well, and the weights kind of started feeling really light. It was when I got to 180, I pulled 180 and I kind of did a double take, kind of thinking of, like, was that 180? What was that? Was that like 140? Just when weights start to move in a matter where you kind of question the feel of the weight, when you train so often, man, you know how 60, 100 feels, how 140, like all these weights, you kind of develop a relationship with it in a weird way. Like you know what it feels like, right? Because you revisit it so often. I took a double take of 180 and I was like, man, this is feeling really light. Went to 220, that felt good. Went to 240, was really happy how that felt. And then at that point, I was like, do I go 260 or do I go to 270? And I thought, screw it, let's have a crack. Let's start knocking at the door of 270. That's the next logical progression for me. 265 is my max. 270 is the next progression. I thought about 600 pounds, which is, what is that, 275 or something along those lines. But I went, nah, let's go 270. So it was a fairly big jump between 240 and 270, 30 kilos, whatever. I had a crack at it. I got it off the ground, which is a very good sign for me because generally speaking, I kind of struggle off the floor. That's kind of, where I feel like the weights really struggle for me. I got it off the floor, but I wasn't really happy with my back positioning. I kind of let go of my lower back, started rounding a little bit. I could have persisted, but like I always say to you guys, there's absolutely nothing to gain, squeezing out these freaking PRs in training. The long-term goal is the priority. The focus is always the 300. I'm so freaking far away 300 that there's no point squeezing out 2-3 extra kilos right now. Keep working, keep building, keep stacking those chips, and one day you'll be cashing it in at 300. It's not a competition, it's not nothing. So the moment I feel like I'm not happy with the positioning or something has gone, out of line, I just let go. I just let go and I walk away from it. I'm like, I don't want to hit a rep that is that freaking grindy where I'm, cat backing it all the way from the floor to the top. And then I have to unwind the spine. It's just asking for trouble. So I let it go. But I've been feeling really good ever since. I've been feeling really happy how it moved. I also gauge a fair bit, about the weight when I'm doing the kneeling deadlift. I also kind of have a feel whether this is possible or not. And the kneeling deadlift for me at 270 felt pretty good as well. I was quite confident I was going to get it. But, we all kind of fail somehow. Nobody kind of fails with perfect positioning. You start to pull, you start to push, whatever the terms are, whatever you think to yourself. And then something kind of starts to deteriorate. Something starts to let go. And then it's kind of like a cascade of muscles kind of falling to the leverages, the worsening leverages because the first chip has fallen. And so when I start to feel that, when I feel like my lats have let go, so my shoulders rounded forward, and then the lever extends, the lever for the lower back extends, and the lower back cops it, and then it's just like, what's the next thing? Then you're kind of rounding, and then the bar probably drifts away from you, and it's just chaos. I let it go, and that was it. Moved over to rack pulls, worked up to 260, and I got 260. This is the first time I've touched 260 on a rack pull at this height. So that's a PR. I've been probably now, I'd have to look at the logbook, but maybe 3 weeks now, 2 weeks now, something like that, working with block pulls, rack pulls. Before that, I was doing, deficits, and I wasn't really feeling all that good. I've kind of made the assumption now, I've made the diagnosis that I'm weak mid-shin. And so I've been working quite hard, doing 3 sets of 10, that kind of business with 170. Today was 180 on the back of sets of those rack pulls, block pulls. I do block pulls at home. And I feel like I'm getting those rewards now. Off the floor, I'm feeling stronger because I've been doing the block pulls. Yes, I know I said that, and I know there's a lot of controversy between, what we believe are the benefits of a deficit of a block pull or a rack pull. What are the benefits? historically speaking, I've always heard people say that if you train the deficit, you're going to improve your off the floor pull. You're going to be better off the floor if you train deficits. And then also, you know, if you train block pulls and rack pulls, like mid shin and up, something below the knee has to be, you are training the top end of the deadlift. I've also heard people in recent times say that it's the opposite. If you train your block pull / rack pull, you're going to be better off the floor. And if you train your deficit, you're going to be better at the top. So, you know, exactly conflicting, you know, 100% conflicting information there. I decided to give this a really good whack now with the block pulls and the rack pulls, and I'm finding it already. I'm finding the symptoms are now coming through, and I'm feeling like I'm getting stronger off the floor. I tried 270 today. I've never tried 270 before. Now, obviously, like I always, you know, harp on about this, it's really hard to, you know, have a clear causation. Was it the deficits that I did 2 months ago? Or was it the things that I did now in the last 2-3 weeks? It's hard to tell. I think everything fits into the picture, but for whatever use this is, I feel the block pulls have done something to me, and I feel really strong off the floor. When I was doing the deficits, I wasn't feeling strong off the floor. Whether there's a degree of delayed effects, you know, I'm cashing in the stuff from the deficit pulls right now. I'm not cashing in the stuff from the block pulls. You quickly get a headache when you start to, you know, work out the timelines of all of these things, because if you're training like me and it's by feel and you're kind of picking at things as you see fit, you are cooking the dish and you do a taste test. Yeah, I reckon I need more salt. Throw some salt in. Is it the salt, or is it because you've cooked it another 2-3 minutes since deciding you need more salt, or whatever the case might be? I'm just using an analogy for that. I don't know if that makes sense. However, I have been getting stronger on the block pulls / rack pulls. So, you know, I think a few weeks ago I struggled to get 240. Last week I got 250. This week I'm getting 260 on the block pulls / rack pulls. Actually, when I train at home, I'm using the block pulls, which are probably going to be easier because you have a little bit of flexion of the bar. There's a little bit of give of the bar. Even though the bar I use at home is freaking hard as anything, basically no whip. It's a 32 miller, right? So it's fat freaking beater bar. So I did 250 with that thing at home off a block at 250. Now in the rack pull, I'm doing 260. Now I could be mistaken, but I think the rack pull is more difficult because there is no flexion of the bar. You know, the bar is resting on the pins, on the safety pins. So I don't know. Maybe at home I could get, dare I say, 270 on the block. Not sure. The point is the 3 sets of 10 that I'm doing with somewhere between 65 and 70% or whatever the weight is that I use for the max in the rack pull. I use 65 to 70% and I try and get that for 3 sets of 10. It's freaking hard work. You get lit up basically from the neck all the way down to the knees, you know, hamstrings, glutes. I'm feeling real bad. Like right now I'm feeling already soreness in the lower back from what I did today. I'm also feeling a little bit funny in the traps, so probably they're going to be sore tomorrow and the next day. But this short range of motion business that I've been kind of thinking about in the last few weeks, there's something to it, man. Depending on how I feel tomorrow, I'm planning to come in and load the hell out of those pin squats. You know, I've been really sore during the last 4 or 5 days because of the adductors and the white stands business that I've been doing with the squats. That's kind of prevented me from doing the pin squats, but tomorrow I plan to get in and do pin squats. I don't know what condition I'm going to be with my body post all of this business with the pulling today, but there's something about freaking shit range of motion. Like as hard as it is for me to say and accept this, because I love full range of motion. I love that type of training and lifting. But there is something about training small ranges of motion, training the freaking thing at a half of the range. You overload the stuff that you need. You preserve, you can overload it. You can preserve some parts of the body. You can overload other parts, and those other parts that you overload will carry over to the full thing, and Bob's your uncle. You are cooking with gas. Paul Anderson is somebody that everybody respects. Maybe a lot of people don't know, but people that know of him, he was the back in the school, old school guy, strongman competitor, Olympic weightlifter, and he did a lot of this business, man. Like, pin squats. There's a thing called Anderson squats, which is basically a pin squat. You start from the bottom up, right? So you crawl underneath whatever height you're using, and you go from bottom up. You know, so no stretch reflex, none of that. You rest it on the and up, rest it and up. This is the first time I heard about anybody doing this. And then there's been a lot of things going on in the last probably 10 years. There was a time where everyone was hot about rack pulls, like really high rack pulls, above the knee rack pulls, where people are putting like 500-600 kilos on the bar and basically leg pressing the thing up. You know, there was a lot of traps craze at the time. Everybody wanted a big ass trapezius muscle. And then that kind of died away. The only reason I'm doing this is to get stronger. Can I use small ranges of motion to get stronger at whatever I'm doing? I'm doing block pulls, you know, I'm doing pin squats, and I feel like I'm heading in the right direction doing that. If we compare what I did 2 months ago with the deficit pulls, you know, deficit pulls were very hard for me. Very, very expensive. Not to say that freaking block pulls and rack pulls are not expensive. But with the deficits, you are obviously asking for more range of motion, and I feel like there's more that can go wrong because you're starting with almost like a rounded back. You're trying not to round the back, but it's stretching it, right? You might be somebody that's really shit at locking it out. If you've done block pulls and rack pulls and you're still struggling with the lockout, just ignore what the majority says and just try and do some block pulls. Deficit pulls if you're struggling to lock the deadlift out. So do the opposite, right? Like me, I'm struggling off the floor, I'm doing block pulls. If you're struggling at the lockout of the deadlift, do the opposite, do the deficit. Some of the reasoning that I've heard about this particular thing is the reason why deficits help you lock out is because it's a long ass range of motion and it causes you to really, really stay tight for a long period of time, and that tightness, that fighting for such a prolonged period of time, feels like you're pulling for ages, will teach you how to stay tight for longer, and will teach you not to get out of positioning at the bottom, because it's usually the poor positioning at the bottom, people trying to be really, really too explosive from the bottom, round their back, and then at the top you got this rounded posture, you got this posterior pelvic tilt, completely kind of like rounded over, and you just simply are relying on your erectors to you know, push your hips through and kind of become erect, you know, lock it out. My philosophy with all this stuff is, it is great that everyone has an opinion and you listen to everyone. This is part of being a student of the game, right? You listen to what everyone says, you apply it to your training, but this is, like I said in the past, this is not a hard science. Apply some of these thoughts. If it doesn't work, hell, man, try the opposite. Try the opposite. I know everyone's telling you to do this or the other, but do the opposite and see, document, analyze what the effects are from doing the opposite. If the opposite from the main recommendation is working, then the recommendation is wrong, right? And then not to say that everyone is going to have the same success with this particular thing that you've discovered. The whole point of training is to discover stuff that works for you. That's it. There's a sea of exercises out there. Your job as a trainee is to pick out the stuff that, you know, that you need. It's kind of like cooking, right? Not that I'm a good freaking cook, but my wife and my mom, everyone around me seems to be cooking really nicely. They go shopping, right? They go to grocery shopping and they pick out what they need. They come home and they make the thing happen. If you don't know what to pick out, what ingredients to pick out, you can't cook anything, man. So just like that in the gym, you are thinking about, okay, I want to improve this part of the lift. I want to improve the deadlift. Okay, which part of the deadlift is struggling? Yeah, I reckon it's the freaking middle portion. How do I trade the middle portion? Oh, let's do this. Let's try something like that. Is the top portion? Let's do this. If it tastes like shit, once you've cooked it, well, next time try something else. That's kind of how I think about these things. I feel like I'm onto something. I feel like there's progression in my thinking. I feel like the hypothesis that I made a few weeks ago, it seems to be correct right now. So let's keep pushing, keep exploring, and let's see if I can, progress with this small range of motion business. I appreciate all of you guys. Special thanks to the fellas on the screen. Appreciate all of the guys on Discord, Patreon, Instagram, YouTube. Means a lot to me. Appreciate you. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.